Hey guys, it's Kendra.
And this is Jessica. And you're listening to
Lucid Lab. So I did something for the first time this week that I've never done.
Oh, what's that?
I went golfing.
Oh, you've never golfed before?
Well, like I've done putt-putt or mini golf, whatever you want to call it. It was called putt-putt where I grew up.
Yeah,
and I've been to a driving range maybe twice in my life, and I've done Top Golf.
Oh, that's right.
But I've never been to an actual golf course.
Oh.
Even though my entire family golfs. Not my mom so much, but all of the men in my family golf. One of my cousins is a pro golfer. Like I should have been well versed in golfing, but I've never done it. And we had an event at work and I was like, I'll go. I didn't feel intimidated because it was just 3 other women and none of them were really good golfers either. Okay. So actually 2 of us had never really been on a golf course before. So I felt like safe in that I wouldn't be the only stupid one, but it ended up being really fun. We only did the 9 holes. I don't imagine that I could do an 18 hole.
No.
9 holes took 2 hours. We weren't the slowest on the course that day. We actually had to wait for the ladies in front of us. So that made me feel good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I had to rent clubs. Obviously, I don't own any of them. I'm not a golfer.
Yeah.
It's a pretty expensive sport to get into, but we were just at a city course and I could see myself going back and doing it again and having fun and hopefully getting a little better. I actually stayed on the course, which surprised me. I just can't hit the ball really hard. So it takes me a long time to get it down the fairway because I just don't have my swing down.
I'll go with you. I think I've only tried like on an actual golf course a couple times. Like I just went with people.
Right.
And then I just became the designated car driver. And I've always loved it because it's nice being out. And
that's what I was thinking. It's a nice hobby to just go out, especially if you're just with girlfriends and it's not like high pressure in any way. I can see why people like it if you want to invest the money. Like I said, the city course was like $24. I think if you go to some of these private places, you pay a lot of money. And people are way too serious. You have to wear like collared shirts and follow all these rules.
That's silly.
So I'll stick with the low class, lower class.
We have a really big one up here, and I know it's just for everybody, and I don't think there's any rules there, so we should try that one.
It'd be fun some weekend, just a couple hours. I got like 3 miles in walking and playing, and I was sore in some places I don't think I've ever been sore before.
Oh, you didn't get a cart?
No, we had a push cart because it's not a big enough course with 9 holes to even have a golf cart. I don't even think they had room for golf carts. It was in Fort Collins.
Oh, okay.
But the way that you swing, like I'm sore and different muscles in my back that I've probably never used in any other way.
You know what you should do is just go get a golf club. And then that's how you work out in your house.
I know I need to just practice the swing.
Get some abs.
I don't know about that. Have you seen most golfers that are not in the greatest of shape?
Well, it's because then they go sit in the bar and drink for 4 hours. And then their wives are like, what took you so long?
Or they drink it on the course because where we went, they had coolers where you could buy like bottles of beer and White Claws to take on the course with you.
Oh, there wasn't a girl driving around? Oh, you just said there's no space for a golf cart.
I know they do that on the country clubs.
I've heard some stories from those girls.
They make good money, some of them.
They make good money, but you should hear what they say.
Oh, I'm sure they get harassed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Married men acting a fool. I think I've seen some videos actually of a golf cart girl and men saying things to her like she keeps her phone going in the front of the cart while she's serving drinks. So watch it, guys. Like girls are coming together, like the girls videoing the men cheating and everything. I'm here for it.
It's our time to be out from under the thumb.
Yes.
And they see it happening, and that's why they're coming after us.
Yeah, they don't like it.
Well, I don't have much to say. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I took the day off, going to just have a summer day and do some barbecue stuff with Elizabeth and my daughter's best friend, her daughter. So it should be fun.
That's always fun. Just chilling and eating some good food in the backyard.
Yep. Trying to make some summer days happen.
Yes. And it's a little cooler this week, so you don't roast when you're outside right now.
I'll still roast.
You always roast. But at least Elizabeth has some misters at her house now.
That's true.
So what are we doing today? I don't know that I'm familiar with what you're planning.
First, a little backstory here. The story we have today is one I have had on my list since the very beginning.
Yes, I remember seeing it on your list.
I believe I found it during one of my very first searches for topics when we got started. I briefly looked into it at one point and felt like it wasn't enough for an entire episode. So when we started doing the mini episodes, I was like, oh, great. Now I can do this again.
Yeah.
I still wasn't supposed to cover this yet. I had it on the list for our next lab reports.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I'm doing it today is because the story I was working on after reading a book, I realized is definitely going to be a two-parter, and we didn't want to give you two-parters in 1 month.
No, that's a lot.
So I had to shift pretty quickly and looked into the story a little bit more, and it's definitely more than a mini episode, but it still won't be as long as my normal episodes.
We need those short ones sometimes. Like Hoya Bachu was that way for me.
Right.
It's like, and I think you mentioned on that one, maybe some of you listeners enjoy some shorter ones, especially after we just had the two-parter with Mormon Manson. That was a lot. So now you get to have a little break too.
So here we are, and we hope you enjoy it. I believe this case is not as well known as others I've covered. Not a lot of other podcasts have covered it. And I think that's because it takes place in Austria.
Okay.
But really, it's kind of an international story.
Okay.
Today, we're going to talk about a young woman who, more than anything in the world, wanted a family.
Oh, okay.
She wanted children. And when she didn't get it, she turned to murder.
Oh, no.
It's, of course, a lot more than that.
Not kidnapping?
No, not that.
Okay.
No harm to a child. So let's get into it and talk about Estibaliz Carranza.
That's a mouthful.
The almost serial killer is what I'll call her.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
Almost. She never successfully kills someone?
So what's a serial killer? How many do they say you need to kill?
3?
Yeah. So
she's not quite 3.
She has killed 2.
Okay. But she wanted more?
Well, she might have done more if something didn't happen.
Okay.
She was born Goidsargi Estibaliz Carranza Zabala on September 6, 1978 in Mexico City. And because that is a mouthful, we're going to call her Esti for the rest of the episode.
Much easier.
She lived with her father, Armando Carranza Mendoza Lopez.
Also, it's because they keep all the last names.
And her mother, Angela Zabala. Her father was a local journalist and author. He wrote books on shamanism, esotericism, and the lives of the Incas, Mayas, and Aztecs.
Sounds like a smart guy.
Mm-hmm. But he was also critical of the Mexican government in his writings. He was an activist, and the government didn't like that.
Oh, they never do.
And one day, armed forces raided their home.
Oh, shit.
Esti was a young child, 4 or 5 years old when this happened, and she remembers that night pretty well. Uniformed men burst into their home with guns and were stepping all over her dolls, and she was just really scared.
Yeah, that's really scary.
The incident forced her father to relocate them to Spain. So they moved to Barcelona when she was 5 years old.
Okay.
It was not an easy transition for any of them. Prior to this, they were decently well off, but Spain was more expensive. They struggled financially. They had a smaller home than they did before. Her father still worked as a journalist and author, but he had to work twice as hard and write about things that he didn't really have a passion for just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And because of this, attention to his family, specifically Esti, changed. It's said that he acted like she didn't really exist.
Aww.
And she felt this deeply, as any child would.
Of course, you're going to notice when your parent is ignoring you.
Right.
Especially at that age.
Yeah. You want to connect with your parents. Make them proud. And it seemed like anything that Esti did, it would just annoy him.
Oh, he was going through something. Obviously, it didn't have to do with her, but
it lasted a long time.
Take it. Yeah, he was probably depressed.
She was to be seen and not heard. That type of thing. According to Esti, he was controlling and dismissive, and she started to resent him at a very young age.
Okay.
And whether it was from the trauma of her early childhood or she was born this way, Esti started to have some pretty bad thoughts.
Oh.
Thoughts about seriously harming her dad.
Okay.
Not just a silly kid saying like, I'm going to kill my dad.
Right. Like she was planning it out.
Yep. She was obsessed over it and the different ways that she could do it.
Okay. That's not normal.
She fantasized about his death and being the one to end his life.
How old was she at this point?
She's still very young. She's still a child. So
like
she's
6
under
or
10.
7 maybe. Yeah.
That's scary. I mean, can you imagine being in a house with a little kid that wants to kill you?
Just looking at you and thinking of different ways
to kill you. Yeah.
But you wouldn't know it. They're not going to tell you. What if our kids did that at some point and we just don't know it yet?
Now I have to ask my daughter, have you ever thought of hurting me?
Like, seriously considered it? Wrote a whole plan out?
No way. But it also didn't help that school was really difficult for her as well. She had a hard time making friends and just always felt different. She was a migrant to that country and felt like other kids looked down on her. She just struggled to fit in, and she did not have a best friend growing up, which I think is a big deal.
That is a big deal.
I mean, I don't know if I've had one like solid best friend, but I had like a little group.
Yeah,
and it
I
sounded
always
like she
had a
didn't
good-
even have that.
Yeah. And my kids always had someone that was like their
Yeah.
favorite person or whatever.
Even if it changed from year to year.
Yeah, and it can change, but yes, they always had that one person to count on.
And then at the age of 10, her mother had a baby. A boy. Of course, attention went to him.
And did the dad like the boy more than the daughter?
I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah.
But I do know that Esti wasn't upset about the birth of her brother. She loved him. Instead, it was the start of her other obsession, to become a mother.
Oh, okay.
At 10, she started asking her mother questions like, when will I be old enough to get married and have a baby?
Okay.
That's what she wanted more than anything in life, to meet a boy, get married, and start a family. That was her dream. She had no other aspirations in life for the rest of her life.
Interesting.
That was her plan, which made me stop and wonder sometimes what we're doing to our kids with toys.
With the baby dolls.
Like I gave my daughter a couple growing up, but she never took to it.
I never liked baby dolls growing up, and neither of my kids did.
I don't know. I think it's always been a bit controversial to me. Like, why are we giving babies?
Yeah, true. It's all about conditioning.
That's what
the
I'm
whole
saying.
Point of it.
Like,
it's just like giving.
You're going to be a mother, so get used to it now type of thing.
It's just like when I was a kid, I had a little ironing set and I had a kitchen sink that I could like wash dishes in. You know, the little kitchen sets. My brother didn't get that kind of shit. He got like G.I. Joes and trucks, and I'm trying to think what else we give our boys. Train sets.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm looking into it too much, but I feel like there is that psychological link there in society's pressure on women to conform to their role as a mother in the home. And with some children, it just is more intense for them. And it probably didn't help in her familial situation here. And she just got super focused on it.
I remember girls, I guess it was more like junior high age, definitely not this young, but girls I knew that I went to school with who came from troubled homes talking about wanting to have babies, and a lot of them probably ended up pregnant as teenagers because they wanted something that would love them unconditionally.
That's another thing.
I think there is something to that.
Yeah, it's true.
But there's no like guarantee that just because you have a child that they're going to love you unconditionally.
No.
You can have children that are not able to love you, or like, I don't know.
True.
There's just different things out there.
So she went through her childhood focused on a couple of things that probably weren't good for her. Murdering her father.
Yeah, that's not good.
Having a baby as young as she could. But as a teenager, she was kind of lost. She was looking for things to fill the voids in her life. She was a very beautiful girl.
Okay.
She still is. She would go to nightclubs, and older men were always interested in her.
So she could have had a baby easily.
She could have. At one point, she was assaulted. She did not report this, but it is something she states in a book later that helped shape her views of men.
Okay.
It didn't change her desire to marry one and have a fairy tale ending, but it certainly didn't help her overall feeling around certain types of men. She was invited to some party by an older man, and she said he tricked her. He took her to an empty room, handcuffed her, and raped her.
Oh.
And so now she had to live with that. Throughout all of this, though, Esti was a really good student, particularly due to the expectation of her father that she is supposed to do well in school.
Okay.
But also because Esti is really intelligent, which kind of makes sense psychologically later and just how she does stuff in life.
Okay.
What was next for her was getting out of her parents' house as soon as she could, which was probably good for her. She just ends up not meeting the right people later. She graduated high school at 17 with honors, and now it was time for college.
Okay.
She moved out and attended the University of Barcelona and studied economics. She didn't want to go to college, really. She wanted to find someone to start a family.
And have babies.
That was her plan. But with her dad, you know, he insisted that she go, and he also chose her major.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's a really boring major, economics. I took 2 economics classes. I can't imagine majoring in that.
No way. No way. But it was here that she had her first serious relationship.
Okay.
And they stayed together throughout the entirety of her studies, which is a long time. I think overall they were together for almost 5 years. So she definitely thought, this is the guy. this is the man I'm going to marry. And once we're done with school, we can start having kids.
Okay.
But when she brought up her plans for them, he did not share the same feelings.
No.
Supposedly, he let her down by saying that he wasn't ready for a serious relationship.
We've all heard that shit.
But they've been together for 5 years. What did he think they were doing?
So,
like, I'm frustrated for her at this point.
There's so many men that are like that. I don't know why. It's like they'll live with you forever, but when it comes down to actually getting married,
yeah,
they're not into it.
I mean, I feel like she would have definitely made it known during the relationship what she wanted.
Right.
There's no way she kept that to herself the entire time.
Yeah. So he was stringing her along.
Definitely.
And yeah, getting the benefits.
That's just it. I think he liked the convenience of her, but ultimately decided to back out and downplay the seriousness of their relationship because she said that he treated her like she was his property. So for him to turn around and break it off, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was really rough for her. So, add this rejection to the list of things that will start to pile up for Esti because Esti does not take things lightly.
Okay.
She internalizes a lot of things. She was absolutely devastated that she was led on in this way. And I'm sure.
Well, yeah. Who wouldn't it be?
But just like she did with her dad, she started to fantasize about killing this now ex-boyfriend.
I think a lot of us might have fantasized. Like, I don't know. That one seems more normal to me than the dad.
Yeah, but she thought about all the specific ways to kill someone.
Yeah, she was like really going into it.
And that's all that she could think about. Like it would consume her.
Yeah, that's a problem.
She was really focused on the whole cutting of his brakes.
Okay.
She didn't go through with it, but she has this evil little director in her head telling her all the neat ways that she could end his life. And that one seemed like the most sensible, I guess.
Okay.
So she didn't act on them, thankfully. Her family noticed how this breakup affected her and thought a change of scenery would be nice. They helped her get a summer job with a family friend as an au pair.
Okay.
This was in Germany. Some sources say Berlin, others say Munich. She was happy to get away from Barcelona and her memories of her ex-boyfriend. And she did love it in Germany. She picked up the language pretty quickly in just a few months, which is crazy.
That's a hard language.
Once her summer job was over, she didn't want to leave yet. She extended her work visa and got a job working at an ice cream shop in a small village near Nuremberg, Bavaria. Which makes me think she was probably in Munich as a live-in nanny because Munich is like an hour and a half away from Nuremberg and Berlin is almost 4 hours.
Yeah, if she was in Bavaria, it'd be Munich.
At this point, Esti is 22, 23 years old. She's single. She's living in another country and pretty happy. And this is when she meets a man named Holger Holtz.
Okay, Holger.
Holger was a fridge salesman who came into the ice cream shop one day. He somewhat resembled her ex-boyfriend, which was probably the initial pull for her, but he was older, 15 years older.
Wow.
They hit it off right away. He complimented the crap out of her, and she fell pretty hard.
Okay.
They went out on a few dates, and she was excited, and at some point, he brought up his faith. He was a follower of Hare Krishna, which is a branch of Hinduism that came about in the 1960s.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that religion.
Sex before marriage is forbidden.
Okay.
Holger wasn't always a follower. I believe he had sex before, but now was waiting for marriage. And once married, sex is only supposed to happen when you're trying to have a baby.
That doesn't sound like much fun.
No. Esti wasn't put off by this initially. She actually found it to be romantic, and her purpose for sex was the same. So,
okay.
She wanted kids. So she's like, great, let's do this. So you'd think that they would just continue dating to make sure overall that they were a good match. But no, apparently after only a few weeks, he proposed to her.
Oh, no.
She said yes. In 2002, they married in a small ceremony with just some of his friends in attendance. Neither of their families were there. She didn't say it at the time, but Esti did have reservations. She agreed too quickly and she felt like it wasn't right, but she still ended up marrying him anyway.
It's too late. Yeah.
I feel like Esti has an issue with making commitments and having, I don't know, the guts to break it off.
Right. She feels like she has to follow through with whatever.
Exactly. And her gut instincts were right because he was not a pleasant person to be with. Of course, she wanted to start trying right away. Why else get married so quickly?
Right.
But after they got married, he told her he wasn't ready. And then he turned into a massive, controlling narcissist.
Ugh.
But she held out, hoping that sooner or later he would be ready and finally she would get her beautiful child.
But no.
But no, that waiting turned into several years.
Oh, shit.
At some point, they moved to Berlin, where Holger is from, and she worked various jobs before finding work at another ice cream shop there. He did continue fridge sales for some time, but then he lost his job and she was the only one working and would continue to be the only one working throughout the rest of their relationship.
That's never good. And they're not even having sex.
Yeah.
Like, there's no connection there.
Yep. He would take all her money. He became a homebody who did nothing but play video games and shoot insults at her whenever he could, telling her that he wasn't attracted to her anymore and that she needed to gain weight. She's a petite woman.
Yeah.
Later in her book, she describes him as a monster.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was physical abuse, but it was definitely a
Emotional.
super toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, he would have his moments. He would promise more things and she would look past everything for a little bit.
Okay.
Life outside of the home wasn't easy either. One male boss was a special kind of asshole and he wouldn't let her use the restroom. So she started to fantasize
About killing him?
And even looked up how to burn down a business, like online.
Yeah.
So it's starting to creep in again for her.
Those intrusive thoughts just keep popping up.
And now we are nearly 5 years after they started dating originally. She
Wow.
was unhappy and started pushing about children. She had done everything he wanted.
How old is she now, too? She's probably getting to the age.
She's like 27, 28. But if
Okay,
that's
but
your
still,
only goal.
Yeah.
Like,
she's been wanting to have kids since she was 10. Like, and if that guy's not going to have kids with her, she needs to have time to find somebody else to have kids with. And that biological clock starts ticking for all of us.
Right. She even attended Hare Krishna stuff with him to support him, even though, that's not her thing. She just wasn't happy. It didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. She wanted to go back to Spain. And I can't imagine not having sex with someone for 5 years. Like, it's one thing if you're best friends and enjoy each other's company and sex just isn't important to you. But that's not the case here.
I would be questioning the man I'm with. Like, are you actually gay or something if you don't want to have sex with me?
That's what I was thinking.
And that's how you're hiding in the religion?
Because it's not like he was a nice person otherwise.
No, she annoyed him. He said that, So
suddenly he decided that they should move to Vienna, Austria, and open up an ice cream shop. She'd always loved Vienna, which he knew, but it was just another means of manipulation. She was hesitant about it, and he promised her that once they got settled and the business was up and running, they would finally start a family.
No, yeah, right.
So she was hooked once again and agrees. It was just a bad first run, right? Everything would be different in Vienna.
Of course.
So they moved to Vienna and bought an ice cream shop in the Miedling district. They moved into a small apartment. The work was supposed to be 50-50 between the two of them.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
At first, they were excited about it, and the shop did well. It started to have regular customers, but quickly Holger stepped away from all his duties and once again was home vegging out, playing video games, surfing the internet, and binging TV. And she did all the work every day.
Fuck that guy.
This was understandably a really difficult time for her.
Yeah.
She has worked in an ice cream shop for a long time, but she never ran one. Not from top to bottom, not the business part. And she was in a lot of debt. And this was his idea. And now he's not helping.
He sucks.
And then he would have the audacity to nitpick her about every little thing while spending any money she brought home that was left on his new hobby of collecting guns.
Oh, shit.
Esty hated guns, but he had a newfound obsession with them, and they were all kept at their place. At this point, she's losing it. He's still putting off starting a family. He's giving excuses. Timing isn't right. They didn't have enough money.
But you're buying 50 guns.
This man just doesn't want kids. He doesn't want her.
Why does she keep ending up with these men that string her along?
I think he became quite comfortable with someone doing all the work so he could do whatever he wanted. But he didn't like her. He never held back on criticism of her.
Yeah.
He would belittle her about everything she was doing with the shop. He was just constantly insulting her, telling her she wasn't attractive. She would work all day and immediately be berated coming home.
Yeah, that sucks.
It was not good. Overall, this relationship should have never happened. They both had their own reasons for jumping into it, I think. Hers was children, and he needed a mommy.
Yeah, and he's 15 years older than her.
I know.
Like, this is ridiculous. I'm sad that she doesn't have the wherewithal to, like, get the fuck out.
She has her own psychological issues here.
Yeah.
So the thoughts started again, and she wanted him dead.
Yeah, me too. Not really.
Careful. He's the victim here, Kendra.
I don't know. She started as the victim first.
It's true. It became all she could think about. But before she could act on it, someone else stole her attention.
Oh, another man?
Another man. So this is 2007 now. They've been in Vienna for 2 years. You'd think she would have learned her lesson, but one day, an ice cream machine salesman walked into the shop.
She likes these machine men.
I guess so.
Fridge man, ice cream machine man.
Something to do with the ice cream business. This was Manfred Hinterberger. He was also 15 years older than Esti. She seems to have a type.
Yeah.
They started flirting, and she had something to distract her from her crappy life.
Right.
He was very complimentary of her, which in contrast to her own husband telling her she's unattractive was a big deal.
Yeah.
And soon they were having a full-fledged affair. They went out on tons of dates. He was constantly telling her how beautiful she was, and she truly felt loved. And at some point, Manfred suggested that she get a divorce. Esti wanted to, so she approached Holger and told him that she wanted a divorce. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly,
he said no.
He agreed.
Oh, okay, good.
So I guess you could look at it either way. So great. They shouldn't be together anyway. But
Yeah.
Holger refused to move out.
Because he has nowhere to go and needs a mommy.
And she wasn't in a position to get another place yet.
Oh, shit.
So she had to just deal with it for a while. But it wouldn't be long until it was too much for her, because even though they were now divorced, she still had to go home to him, and he was just as much of an asshole as before, if not more.
Yeah, it's a miserable situation.
And this went on for a while. He still belittled her. He still felt like it was his right to constantly comment on her body.
Ugh.
Which, if you see this girl, I don't know why anybody is commenting on anything about her.
I just looked her up. She's gorgeous.
Yeah. He's just living off her hard work, still doing nothing. Now they're not even married, and he thinks he can continue treating her this way.
The audacity of men. Some men.
Some men.
A lot of men.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off. I can't handle the men that criticize women's bodies, because usually they're the ones that look like a potato.
Right? I saw this one video the other day of this really old man talking about that and how that's why teenagers are the best, because they're young.
Can they arrest him now? Yeah, he's a pedophile.
Totally disgusting.
And he looks like he's probably got a huge beer gut and
huge. He was
wrinkles
Santa Claus
and no hair. And a little
Claus
dick.
With no hair.
I can't handle men and their criticism of women, because we take that shit so deeply.
That's what I'm saying. She had to have been fucked up at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been emotionally abusing her for years and
telling
years.
her that she's not attractive. She's your wife. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? But even with that, the thoughts hadn't come back while she was with Manfred, because
she felt loved with him.
Yeah, he made her happy. But there would end up being a rift in this happiness, because Esti made it known that she wanted to have kids, which
Manfred didn't want kids.
no, because what I didn't mention before is that he already had children and they're already grown.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
he's
he's
so much
been
older.
down that road. He doesn't want more kids. So at one point they broke up because of this. And this happened after she had already divorced Holger. So now she's just kind of stuck with this Holger situation. And her and Manfred both went on to start seeing other people.
Okay.
So outside of the home for a little bit, Esti was kind of attempting to live it up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during this time when she wasn't with Manfred and seeing others. I say it that way because at some point they do get back together later.
Okay.
But one day she came home after a long day of work, and Holger immediately started insulting her and threw in some extra crap about how she would be nothing without him and that no one else will ever want her. Stuff like that.
Fuck that guy again.
And something I do just have to say, a lot of this is her testimony. So some of it you have to take with a grain of salt.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? She is a murderer. So
I know, but I've also lived with toxic men.
Yeah.
So.
And other people can attest to their relationship not being good.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure if there's actual physical abuse in this relationship either. I don't know if it's all verbal. So there could be some other stuff happening here as well. Anyway, this fighting supposedly lasted for hours.
Oh.
And she had had enough.
Yeah.
And those murderous thoughts came back. And she grabbed one of his .22 caliber Beretta pistols lying about, and she shot him 2 times from behind while he was playing a video game on the computer.
She'd been dreaming of that moment for years, I bet.
Both were in the head.
Mm-hmm.
And she shot a 3rd time in his temple for good measure.
Okay.
So he's dead. And this was April 27th, 2008.
Okay.
Many believe Holger's murder, although she thought about it for years, was not technically premeditated, because this girl did not know what to do with herself afterwards.
Oh, no. So
right after she did it, she kind of waited around. surely someone heard that. Right? When the cops didn't show up, she left the apartment and went and stayed the night with a guy that she was kind of seeing at the time.
Okay.
She just left his body sitting in the chair. And the next morning, she went to work. She was worried that someone was going to find him, and she didn't know what to do. Like, she was shocked that no one heard these gunshots. She lived in an apartment. There were 3 shots.
People don't ask questions. They're like, I probably heard that, but I don't want to get involved.
I don't know like the neighborhood she was in or anything like that. So maybe that's a thing. But she was sure that the police were going to come to her work and pick her up.
Right.
But that never happened. So after the second day of returning home to see Holger still
Dead.
sitting in this chair and decomposing now, no police swarming the building, she realized that she needed to figure out how to dispose of his body.
Yeah, it's going to get smelly.
Now, for this part, I have no idea what she was thinking, but she tried to set his body on fire.
In the apartment?
She had an old bottle of schnapps. She poured it all over him and lit him up. But it wouldn't stay lit. It just like fizzled out. It burned him a little bit and then that was it. Like, what was she thinking? Was she willing to burn down everyone else with him?
Yeah, that doesn't... You're in an apartment once again.
I know. Was she going to try and like put it out once he was burned enough? I don't know. But it did not work at all.
They had the internet at this point for her to look up how to get rid of a body. I guess you probably don't want to do that, but still.
Right. Although she does use the internet for stuff. I mean, it's found out. I don't know, but it didn't work other than to have the fire department show up because what it did do was create a ton of smoke.
Yeah.
And a really bad smell.
Yeah.
So, of course, now Esti's freaking out and she gets a knock on her door. Holger's semi-burnt body is still in the chair. This heavy, rotten smoke is wafting out of her place. She answered the door and somehow got out of it by saying that she burned her dinner.
Because she's a pretty girl.
She's cooking fish. Which reminds me of the scene with Dahmer. Because they come to his door, remember? And he's like, oh, my meat went bad and I have dead fish. But yes, she's beautiful. So she charmed her way out of the situation.
And what are you going to do? You can't force your way into somebody's house if they're like, it's fine now.
I mean, yeah, if she opened the door, you're just not going to imagine she's doing something bad.
No.
If you saw her face come through the door.
Yeah, she looks like a sweet little innocent girl.
Now she had to figure out another way to dispose of his body.
And he's like half charred.
Exactly.
He's smoky and smells like God knows what.
This is now the 3rd day of her living with his decomposing body. Her ex-husband, who she murdered. I mean, did she put a sheet over him at least or something?
How she's sleeping, yeah.
I mean, it's not a big place. It's kind of hard to avoid him. And he smells, like you said. And who knows how long she was gone. Obviously, she works and she had a lover's place to go to.
She's not there much. But every time you walk in, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I got to take care of that problem.
Exactly. So she decides that the only way she's going to get him out of the apartment is in pieces.
Yeah.
He's a really big guy and she's tiny. So she went and bought a chainsaw at a hardware store. She even asked the employee there to explain to her how to use it.
That's scary.
If I worked at a hardware store and a woman came in asking for instructions on how to use a chainsaw, I would not sell it to her.
No, she's going to cut her limbs off on
Exactly.
accident.
I wouldn't be like, who are you cutting up? I'd be worried that she'd chop off her own arm.
Yes.
But they helped her.
Okay.
She took it home and started cutting him up.
That's going to be loud for your next door neighbors.
I know.
Okay, so if they happen to have heard the gunshots a few nights ago, then they smelled the smoke and now they hear a chainsaw.
Maybe she had deaf elderly neighbors.
This is also, I think, part of the Austrian and German culture. It's just you don't get in each other's business.
Maybe she just had like blasting music for a few days. It wasn't easy and it did take a lot of time. And she even took a break at one point and went to go see one of her lovers.
Is there like blood going everywhere while she's doing this?
She did lay out a lot of plastic. Like she has a lot going on in this apartment right now. When she was done, she put his body parts in plastic bags. She brought home empty ice cream tubs, big ones, and then put the bags in those and then put them in the freezer.
In the ice cream shop?
At her apartment.
Okay.
So she must have cut them up pretty small for all that to fit. She spent the next few days cleaning up all the blood and fluids in the apartment and then just went about her life. Other than the smell, because there was still a smell. Just because he's in the freezer.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he's not going to smell. So she just kind of dealt with that, I guess. But what I want to know is where'd that burnt chair go? Because some of his skin had to have been attached to it. So what did she do with that? I don't have details on that, but I have that question.
She sold it on Craigslist.
Maybe there's a black market for stuff like that. Who knows?
There's a black market for everything.
That's true. So people started asking about Holger. but not intensely, because he's like a homebody, like I said. And people knew that when they were together, it wasn't a really good relationship.
Yeah.
But he did attend the Hare Krishna stuff. And so it was people from that community that were asking about him.
Mm-hmm.
But they're divorced. So she said,
I don't know.
Oh, he went to India.
Right.
And people believed her. So
why would they not?
No one suspected anything. I mean,
your first assumption is not going to be, oh, she probably killed him.
I know. And she's small.
Right.
And for all we know, she's like pretty submissive to him in person around other people. So
yeah,
who knows? She was lucky, and he wasn't really missed, I guess. So
everybody's like, whatever. I mean, he wasn't doing anything except sitting in his house and playing video games. Right. The only people who would have missed him was probably
family,
the Hare Krishna and the family. Although
it seems like family didn't care either, because she got away with this for a while.
Okay.
In the fall of 2008, she got notice that her lease was coming up and she needed to vacate the apartment. I don't know if they were making her leave or she just didn't want to renew. I'm sure she wanted out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But that created an issue that she needed to deal with, yet again, one that she had been avoiding. What the heck was she going to do with his body parts?
Right.
So she thought up a plan to get him out of there. She filled the ice cream tubs with cement to cover his parts. She was going to store these ice cream tubs somewhere where ice cream tubs are expected to be, which is at her ice cream shop.
Ugh.
So she called a taxi, and the taxi guy helped her load these into the trunk of the car. I don't know what he was thinking. They were super heavy and not cold.
He's like, these are not ice cream.
But he was dropping her off at an ice cream shop. So like maybe his brain was doing gymnastics to like try and understand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What's going on? So she put the tubs into a freezer in the cellar of the shop.
Okay.
She bought some air fresheners to hang down there just in case it started to smell. I mean, I would think that body parts in cement wouldn't smell, but I think we talked about this once. Remember in the very beginning, we need to relook into that story.
Oh, the one about the body that was found in the cement in someone's house or something, right? In the basement.
In their crawl space or something.
Fred and Rose poured cement over their bodies too.
Yeah, but that's like an entire concrete floor.
Yeah.
Very different, I think. I don't think it was enough to cover what was going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have to throw one thing in here that I found from other sources. I couldn't confirm because a lot of this is being translated.
Right.
Some sources say that she also had this like larger freestanding freezer in her apartment, which would make more sense as far as fit it in. Yes. Him somewhere.
Yeah.
So she took the taxi with some of these tubs, but she also had to transport this actual freezer to the ice cream shop as well, which I'm not sure how she did. I do know that she had to enlist the help of a couple unsuspecting guys to help her with that, to get it down into the cellar. But in this freezer, and this is why I wanted to mention it, the story goes that she went to get all his parts out, and his head was at the bottom of this freezer.
Okay.
And it was stuck.
Ew.
So rather than having to crowbar his head out of it and deal with the trauma of that, she just covered the inside bottom of the freezer with cement as well. And so that's why she had to move the whole thing somewhere.
Okay.
But she wasn't thinking very clearly there.
Obviously, at all. She hasn't been thinking clearly for a while.
No. So now 2.5 years have gone by.
Damn.
Since she murdered him.
Okay.
It is the fall of 2010. She's still running the shop, and she's back to dating Manfred now.
Oh, he came back.
He came back. They reconnected, and she's actually living with him now.
And she still hasn't had her baby.
Nope. But things with Manfred weren't as blissful as they used to be when they first started dating.
Never are.
At first, things were great when they got back together. He even invested in the ice cream shop to help her out.
Oh, that's nice.
But after being back together for a while, they started to argue. Things were not progressing. Getting married again and having children is what she wanted. But remember, this isn't what he wants.
Right. Why are you back with him, girl?
I don't know if she thought maybe she could convince him down the
Change
line
him,
or accidentally get pregnant or something. But once again, she was in the position of doing everything for the man she was with, and she wasn't getting the same in return.
Aww.
I mean, the money to help her business was one thing, but she was changing herself for him physically. Even though he was super complimentary in the beginning, he started to point out all her flaws.
Fuck these guys.
Or what he considered flaws. She didn't look exactly how he wanted her to be, so she ended up getting a nose job, a facelift, Botox, and lip injections to appease him.
Oh, man.
And she would work out every day after work, even though she was working these massively long shifts running this business.
Oh, my God. It's like she was looking for attention that she didn't get from her father as a child. I'm like sitting here psychoanalyzing. Why are you with these men?
Yep. But none of that mattered because in the end, Manfred was still having doubts about the relationship and suggested that they both start seeing other people.
Okay.
He didn't want to end the relationship.
Yeah, he just wants access.
He just wanted an open relationship, which was absurd to her. She didn't want that. That's the opposite of what she wants.
Of course.
So when he suggested this, she immediately turned down the idea, of course, but it made her think that he's suggesting this because he's already having an affair. And she was right. She went through his phone one day and searched his browser history on the computer and found nude pictures of other women. And he was talking to other women through dating sites, saying stuff like, I can't wait to see you again. And I guess he had a habit of staying up late on the computer after she went to bed.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
And she was pissed. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
And apparently on one of these dating sites, Manfred described his perfect woman, and it was not Esti. He said something like he wanted a sporty, well-built woman who loved skiing and cycling. And that wasn't her.
She was a little petite thing. Why do so many men do that? Like they have a type, but then they go date opposite of their type and try and turn that girl into their type. It's like, just go date your type. Like, I get it.
Because sex.
It's that and the fact that they like making that woman feel like shit all the time and telling them. I speak from experience. I've been in a relationship like that.
Yeah.
Where I was not their type. And it's like, cool, you just wasted years of my life.
Yep.
I'm never going to be your type. You like tall women. I'm 5'2". Like, why did you ever date me to begin with?
Yep. I know.
Yeah. We're all messed up.
Anyway, she did confront him about all of this, and he said that he was sorry and that he thinks he has an addiction to sex. She should have just left him then and there, but she didn't.
We don't.
Instead, she stayed, and her reasoning was that she was essentially emotionally handicapped. Like she did not know how to leave. She couldn't bring herself to do it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of going into that thing that I was talking about, her and commitment. Like she has this weird thing with commitment and with men, just in general.
Can't break it off when she needs to.
Difference between her and other women, though, is that it typically doesn't lead to murder.
No.
And one thing you shouldn't have done is cheat on her.
Oh, no.
So she started to plan his murder.
She starts dreaming.
Of course, later she claims it was also in the heat of the moment. But she definitely planned this one.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not the exact day, but she was definitely prepared.
She had her chainsaw sharpened. What do? You get a new chain?
I mean, that's what someone should do. Maybe the other one wasn't good enough because leading up to the fateful night, which I'll come to in a second, she purchased a new chainsaw.
Oh, okay.
She took special training sessions at a shooting range.
Okay.
And she actually took a concrete mixing class.
Can you be more obvious?
You know, super obvious. Although that wasn't her original plan with Holger. I mean, she didn't really have one initially, but cutting up his body, putting them in these tubs and covering those parts with cement technically worked.
For 2.5 years or what? It's probably been 3 years at this point.
Why not do it again?
Yeah.
On November 21st, 2010, they went out on a date and she noticed him looking at other women and confronted him about it. After a bout of arguing before bed, they went to sleep, and then Manfred started snoring very loudly.
Oh, that's enough to make me want to kill someone.
She said that this is what set her off that night.
Yeah. I only laugh. I can't handle snoring. I may have plotted killing people who were snoring next to me before.
It's one of those things, man. It's a big pet peeve for a lot of people.
My eye starts twitching because I'm like, I need to sleep, and this person's sleeping and loudly.
Anyway, Esti kept a gun under the mattress.
Okay.
She got it out, loaded it, and shot him dead in his sleep 4 times in the head.
Wow.
So this was actually the early morning of November 22nd that she killed him because they did get home after midnight because I think I said the 21st.
Yeah.
She left him like that for a while, but she didn't wait a few days this time. In the morning, she dismembered him, put his parts in tubs, filled them with cement, and stored the tubs in the cellar freezer at the shop alongside Holger's tubs.
Wow. Does she have workers in the shop that go down there?
I think she runs it mostly by herself.
Okay. I was like, I could just see someone going down there to like get some extra vanilla or whatever.
Well, I'll come to this cellar area. It's not what you think. It's not their like fridge area in the actual shop.
Okay.
But I guess during the time of dismembering him, she broke a nail. So once she got those tubs down there, she immediately went and got a manicure.
It's tough work.
I mean,
killing and dismembering and concreting and chainsawing, all of it. Yeah. You need a recovery day.
I don't know how she did it, to be honest.
No, she's in like some kind of psychosis or something, right. I think.
Something to have like the extra strength to pull that off.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure just a leg weighed what she did.
Yeah. She probably had some kind of like, I don't know what she'll be diagnosed with later. There's something going on mentally.
Mm-hmm. But the sudden disappearance of Manfred was different from Holger.
People missed him.
Yeah, he had friends, he had family, he had children.
Oh, that's right.
People noticed right away, and she had to handle it differently. She just told people that she didn't know where he was and that she was worried too. She even reported him missing.
Okay.
I mean, she waited like 4 to 6 days to do it. But it still worked for a while.
Okay.
They thought he left her.
Right. He was cheating on her and all of that. They could probably trace that.
So she wasn't suspected of anything.
Okay.
No one thought that this petite, beautiful little girl had anything to do with his disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
But she wouldn't get away with it for too long because the universe steps in to point her out.
Okay.
But not before she started yet another relationship.
Oh, shit. With another emotionally unavailable guy that doesn't want kids who's 20 years older than her?
Actually, no. Some parts of that, but not completely. In December of 2010, which is just less than a month later, she started spending time with a man named Roland.
Okay.
Once again, he's 15 years older than her. So that's definitely her
lucky number
range. And he was actually one of Manfred's friends.
Oh, well, that wasn't smart.
She is 32 years old now, and he's 47.
Okay.
They knew each other before, but they bonded over Manfred's disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
She played the victim. He left her. She wasn't good enough for him. How could he?
Right.
Which is partially true, you know. But the two ended up falling madly in love with each other. Roland was actually seeing someone else at the time, but quickly broke it off with her to be with Esti.
Okay.
They were officially together by January.
And then she said, I want to have kids. And he was like, I don't love you anymore.
I don't know if she got to telling him that just yet.
Okay.
But once again, Esti's faith was restored. Now, this is going to be the one that she will marry and start a family with.
Okay.
And things went well for them. He was in love with her, and he did want to be with her. He was different from Holger and Manfred. Those two were assertive and abusive in their own ways, and Roland worshipped her.
They always worship you the first.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in love bombing stage.
But compared to the two, he was timid and agreeable.
Okay.
5 months into their relationship, Esti was over the moon to find out that all her dreams were coming true because she was pregnant.
Oh, okay.
And rather than wait for Roland to man up, she asked him to marry her, and he said yes.
Okay.
So finally, it's all coming together, but her dream would be crushed very soon. On June 7th, 2011, Esti showed up to work and immediately knew that there was something wrong.
Oh, no.
People were standing around whispering. She quickly asked someone what was going on, and they told her that a pipe had burst in the business next door, and the plumbers had to fix this in the cellar.
Oh, shit.
And the cellar door had been locked shut because that's where her bodies were.
Uh-huh.
The day before, they had to break down the door and later found out why the door was locked.
Mm-hmm.
First, they noticed all the air fresheners, and to get to the pipe, they had to move stuff around. Wondering why these ice cream containers were so heavy, they opened one.
Oh, no.
And found a leg or a foot sticking out of the concrete.
She didn't cover them very good.
And the police were called.
Yeah.
I was initially confused why it wasn't immediately tied to her and why she was allowed to walk in and talk to people. But I guess there were multiple rooms in this cellar. So this cellar was like a basement for the entire building, and there were multiple shops in this building.
Okay.
And these cellar rooms were like little storage areas. And the cellar room where she was keeping these freezers is actually one that was not assigned to her.
Okay.
It actually wasn't assigned to anyone. And I think that's why she was using it. But I'm sure the ice cream tubs.
It kind of gives you away.
Exactly. Just not quick enough because she made some excuse and ran out of the shop right before the police showed up. Her first stop was the bank, which was close to her shop, so it still was a bit of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
She was going to empty her savings, but while standing in line, she realized that she didn't have something that would allow her to do that. I read that it was a savings book, whatever that is, but that was actually still at her shop.
Oh.
And she couldn't go back there. So she called a friend of hers. This woman actually worked as her cleaner. She asked her to stop in and grab that for her and meet her on a bridge nearby.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, the woman agreed. And surprisingly, she was able to go in and grab this stuff.
Okay.
Even with
the cops and
stuff going on there. I don't know the story here, but I'm assuming this friend didn't really know what was going on.
I would assume not.
She knew something bad was happening, but didn't know the extent of it. But
Yeah.
Esti got what she needed. She got cash from the bank, 10,000 euro, and she emptied her safe deposit box. And now she needed her passport, which she also didn't have. It was at home, and she was scared to go there now.
Yeah.
While walking around, she noticed someone driving by that she knew, and she stopped him and gave him some kind of sob story that the cops were looking for her because of something Manfred did, and that she needed to leave quickly but needed her passport, and asked him if he would go into her apartment and get it for her.
And he did.
And he did. He agreed. She also convinced him to buy her a prepaid phone or a SIM card, and he did. I don't know which one.
It's pretty privilege. When you're a pretty girl, people do things for you.
Yep. Afterwards, he hailed her a taxi to take her to the airport. While in the taxi, she wrote a note to Roland along with her new number. It instructed him to meet her at the airport and call the new number. And she gave this to the taxi driver and paid to have him take it to Roland because he was at work.
Okay.
So now she's at the airport waiting and deciding where she should go.
Mm-hmm.
She settled on Paris and bought a ticket, but was worried about taking the flight. She waited for Roland and eventually got a call from him. She spotted him in the crowd at the airport looking for her. I don't know if she went up to him or just continued talking to him on the phone, but of course he was flustered.
Yeah.
He had no clue what was going on. She told him that her father was deathly ill and she needed to rush back to him. And he didn't buy it and pressed her for more information. Why all the secrecy with the note and the new number?
Mm-hmm.
What does that have to do with your
that
dad?
has nothing. Yeah.
She just asked him to forgive her for some horrible things that he was about to find out because she couldn't tell him herself. But at some point, I guess he gave up or she convinced him to leave, and he did.
He was in love with her.
And even though she bought the plane ticket to Paris, she did not get on the plane. She had a bad feeling about it.
Okay.
And her gut instinct was right because the police had already connected her and were waiting for her at the gate.
By the plane where she would have boarded?
The Paris flight. Instead, she hailed another taxi. She first went to the train station, but there were not any international trains. So she got back in another taxi and asked that driver to take her to Italy.
Okay.
Specifically Udine, Italy, which was about a 4.5-hour drive just over the Austrian border.
Okay.
So quite a trip for a taxi.
That's an expensive taxi ride. That guy's like, I'm making my weekly pay right here.
Right. And they got pretty far, but I guess at some point along this drive, I don't know if it was because of news on the radio or something, but she admitted to him that she was running from the police.
Okay.
And the taxi driver got a little spooked.
Mm-hmm.
So he agreed to drop her off at the next town, which was close to where she wanted to go, but not quite there.
Okay.
So I've heard this in two different ways too. Either she gave a fake name and got into this motel, or he got her the motel room under his name.
Okay.
So that she had somewhere to stay.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, she found some other travelers who were willing to take her to Udine.
Okay.
I guess Udine is just somewhere that would have been easier to hide, I think.
Bigger, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think there are more people there. And when she got there, she immediately found a hairdresser to change her hair color.
Okay.
She made it darker. She managed to evade the police at first, but while all this was happening, they did determine who the bodies were.
Okay.
They were trying to put together the body parts,
Mm-hmm.
which is rough, and they're in concrete.
Yeah.
They had most of Manfred, but they only had the head of Holger. So I think she was in the middle of getting their parts out of there slowly, piece by piece. And if Holger's head wasn't there, which would have required her like getting rid of that entire freezer.
Yeah, it was stuck to the freezer. She couldn't get rid of it.
Exactly. So I think if like she had handled that situation in the beginning a little bit better, it sounds weird to be saying that. She killed him. But had she been able to have his head, I guess, in a tub, then it might have just been one murder.
Right. But now
they would know
have
about. Yeah. Anyway, police either tracked down that taxi driver or he willingly just went straight to the police after doing this and told them where he dropped her off. But when they got there, she was already gone.
Right.
It wouldn't take them long to find her, though, because there are good people out there.
Right. And she's all over the news.
Right. When she was there, she met a musician busking in the street in Udine and told him that she ran away from her abusive husband and convinced him to let her stay with him for a couple of days.
Okay.
But he noticed that she was particularly obsessed with this crime coming out of Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
And then he took a closer look at her and realized
it's her.
It's her. So he called the police. 4 officers arrived at his home the next morning on June 10th around 7:30 a.m. and arrested her.
Okay, gig is up.
While she was being questioned by the Italian police, she started to bleed at one point, and it scared her.
Bleed where?
Remember, she's pregnant.
Oh.
So she requested a doctor visit to make sure that the baby was okay. I don't know if they didn't believe her or something or denied her at first, because she ended up confessing to everything just so that she could go to the doctor. She had some tests done, and they did confirm that she was 2 months pregnant.
Okay.
The baby was okay. I'm sure it was just the stress. I
Yes.
mean, she's running for her life. She was extradited back to Austria June 24th. And this case was an immediate sensation.
I'm sure.
Because she's pretty. She's tiny.
Uh-huh.
How did she get away with this? Especially the work it takes to dismember somebody.
Yeah, that's
and these
pretty
were
crazy.
2 large men.
Mm-hmm.
Many wondered if she had an accomplice because of this.
I could see that, yeah.
But they've never been able to narrow it down to anybody. And no, I don't think she did.
No, she just took a while.
Yep. Leading up to the trial, Esti ended up giving birth to her son,
Oh, okay.
Kaiser Franz Joseph Spittel, on January 11th, 2012.
Okay.
So he is a little Capricorn, like
And
me.
she had the baby she always wanted,
But she doesn't get to spend time with him.
but now she's going to jail.
Yep. He was immediately handed over to Roland. Esti was able to see her child once
No.
on January 31st. I'm not sure if she's seen him since, actually.
Mhm.
And Roland ended up marrying Esti March 29th in prison.
That's a twist I didn't see coming.
You'd think he'd consider himself lucky to have gotten away from her since she kills her partners.
Yeah, she's like a black widow.
But he didn't. He still thought she was a wonderful woman, and he loved her, and he was willing to wait for her.
Okay.
But interestingly enough, Roland didn't keep his son. I don't know why exactly.
Oh.
I thought maybe he couldn't do it alone, or maybe
Yeah, he's older.
he thought like the baby would be safer out of Austria knowing what his mom did.
Yeah, if he could go be adopted in distance, maybe.
Well, so he wasn't adopted out. Through one source, I did find that even though he was the father, ultimately he wasn't granted custody.
Okay.
He protested this, apparently, if this is what happened. Ultimately, their son ended up being given to her parents.
Interesting.
They took custody of him on April 4th, and he moved to Barcelona.
Okay.
Later on, Esti had this psychiatric evaluation. This was in July of 2012, and it was determined that she was particularly dangerous,
Yeah, a little bit, I guess.
but fundamentally sane during her actions. Which is confusing. I'm not sure how they determined that, because then she was diagnosed with a, quote, grave, comprehensive, serious, multifaceted personality disorder
Okay.
and other serious mental abnormalities. And this was by a forensic psychiatrist who spent more than 30 hours with her.
Yes.
Either way, it was clear that she was capable of committing some serious crimes, and it was suggested that she cannot be released back into the public.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, she's got something.
You
for
don't
sure.
just kill. Like, she
And-
had the opportunity to leave both situations.
Right.
She really did, and she didn't.
There's
She
other ways.
murdered them.
Yes.
So,
No matter how horrible they are to you. Yeah.
and who knows if she ended up having a best friend later and she would have killed her or something.
Yeah.
She just seems to be, if it's not working
Unstable.
out and it's not a situation that she likes being in, she feels like the only way to get out of that situation is to eliminate them.
Yeah, that's not safe. And Roland probably would have been eliminated eventually if he like stopped
Right.
looking at her starry-eyed, you know?
Right. So her trial started November 19th, 2012. She pled guilty to all charges.
Well, that makes it easy.
She admitted that her actions were disgusting. She said she felt miserable after the murders, but couldn't bring herself to commit suicide, even though she thought about it. The trial only lasted 4 days. On November 22nd, she was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison.
Okay.
However, she was not sentenced to regular prison. She went to a secure mental institution for women.
That's probably the right call.
Yeah. Of course, her lawyers appealed this, but the sentence was confirmed a second time on March 20th, 2013. Now, in prison, Esti became a celebrity.
What?
She was often in the news, like it was the hot drama of the city, I guess.
Because she's a pretty girl.
I guess. And she killed 2 large men.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that she could profit from her story. In 2014, she teamed up with the journalist Martina Prewine to write her memoir. She called it My Two Lives, The True Story of the Ice Lady.
Oh, the Ice Lady. She gave herself her own moniker.
She did. It was published in November. I tried so hard to find this book, but I couldn't.
Oh.
It was initially published in German and might only be published in German.
Maybe that's why it's hard.
I really wanted to read it, but I do have some snippets. Apparently, she describes Holger and Manfred as monsters who turned her into a bloodthirsty beast. She said, I believed I had to serve men, no matter how they behaved towards me. And in both situations, their death felt like her only way out. But she also said, I killed 2 men whom I once loved. There's no way of glossing this over. I robbed 2 mothers of her sons. And she's talking about this after finally having her own child.
Yeah. And having mental treatment probably for the first time in her life.
And she admits that if she had met Roland first, she probably would have never become a killer.
Maybe. She doesn't know what Roland would have turned into for 5 years or something.
I don't believe that. She has issues. I'm sure at some point he would have done something to upset her.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because she has this trauma from her childhood. And she wanted to kill her dad growing up. So it's really...
She has a major intrusive thought problem.
Right. And he does end up breaking things off with her.
Okay.
In fact, he criticized the book coming out, saying that no business should be done with the dead. So he didn't agree with her.
Capitalizing on it.
Right. So it seems like he ultimately came to his senses. They officially divorced in August of 2018, but I think that this was a couple of years after they broke up.
Okay.
And something just to mention, everyone else does refer to her as the ice cream killer.
Okay.
And she did dub herself
the Ice Lady.
Right. And so that's why you'll see it both ways.
Okay.
The proceeds from the sale of her book do not go to her.
Okay.
It actually goes to her son.
That's okay.
So that's good. He didn't ask to be born to a killer.
Exactly.
And he didn't ask to grow up without parents.
And he probably needs the money.
So I don't know if they have any contact. I assume some, because at one point they did try to get her transferred to an institution in Barcelona so that she could be closer to him. But of course it was denied.
Yeah.
She was in the news again in 2017 because they transferred her to an all-male prison.
What?
I know. Crazy. And they said that they did this because she was deemed too dangerous to be at a women's facility.
Wow. What was she doing?
I don't know. She was actually the first of 13 women who were ultimately moved over to a male prison. So maybe it was some kind of experiment, because I'm not really sure why she was moved there. I don't know. Maybe she hurt someone.
Maybe.
I did find one article mentioning, and maybe it was translated badly, I don't know, that 2 other female inmates received longer sentences because of something that they tried to do to Esti. But that doesn't fit that she was the dangerous one to be moved.
Yeah, why wouldn't they move the other 2?
I just don't know why they would.
To an all-male?
Right, like men were her victims.
Right.
And it didn't take long for her to start up a relationship with one of them,
Oh.
a man named Martin. And she said that he was a psychopath, but she fell in love with him.
Well, you know, pot calling the kettle black there.
I guess. I don't know. I immediately had the whole Joker Harley Quinn image in my mind when it came to that. And I guess this got out and that man was transferred somewhere else.
Well, you move like any female to a male prison. Of course, there's going to be a relationship. There's no other women for them to choose from. And you add on top of it that she's attractive. Like, what do they think's going to happen? She's just going to keep going through all the guys.
It's true. They even got engaged at some point, but they did end up splitting up in July of 2019.
Okay.
But yeah, she'll just go on to charm someone else. My worry is she's going to charm a guard or something, and he's going to get her out of there. Like, I wouldn't put it past her.
Right.
She's only 45 years old. She has a long way to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, my initial concern hearing that was she's a woman with a bunch of men.
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned for her. I mean, I shouldn't be concerned. She's a murderer. Like, it's just a gut reaction. You hear one woman going to an all-male prison.
Yeah, she's going to
That just sounds like a horror story.
I hope they're keeping her separate.
I mean, I assume that they keep her apart, but then how did she get with that guy? Because I read somewhere that it became all-consuming for her because of the sex.
Okay, so how are they?
There's some kind of interaction going on. Maybe they started off as pen pals, and once they got engaged, they let them see each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I knew more, but there's just not enough out there about this case. And the fact that it was initially all put out there in another language, we only have bits and pieces.
Right.
Overall, I definitely would not be surprised to hear more about her over the coming years.
Yeah, she's young, like you said.
And, you know, she has a few screws loose and she has multiple people in her body and she's beautiful. So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the story of Esti, the ice cream killer, ice lady who cuts up ex-lovers.
Crazy tale. I don't even know what to say. Like, there's so many parts of that story where I like related with her and I felt bad for her. But like we said, we've all been through toxic relationships. You don't kill them.
Exactly.
And she wouldn't have either if she didn't have her disorder.
Yeah, her disorder. Who knows where that came from?
Yeah. Trauma from when she was like 4 years old and her house was raided. You don't know. Like, that's when people split off into different personalities.
Right. It was a way for her brain to protect her.
Or when she was raped at a young age.
Well, she started having...
But she already had,
Right. She started having murderous thoughts very young. So maybe there's something with that event when all that happened that we don't know about.
Yeah, maybe one of the soldiers did something to her.
Maybe. And she doesn't even remember it because her brain
just split off into another.
Then and there to protect her. So we can't excuse what she did. She's a murderer. But
it's also like hard to feel sorry sometimes for victims that, at least according to her story, sound like they were pieces of shit anyways. Like they weren't good partners. They weren't doing things. Yeah, they weren't like abusing her like some of these other stories we hear where the men are like just beating them all the time.
Right. Yep.
But they were losers. I don't know what else to say. Like the first guy was, playing video games all day and letting her support him.
And telling her she's not beautiful.
Yeah, they were both of the guys like picked on her looks and everything like that. And that's not okay. Doesn't make it right to murder them. I get that.
Yeah.
But I understand. I'm so bad. I understand the like urge to just don't follow through with it. And if you are going to murder someone like that, maybe I think Dexter was out at that time. She could have watched that show.
Oh, that's true.
Probably would have given her a little bit better ideas than what she did. She wasn't a very good criminal.
No, I think she just got away with it because she's unassuming.
Yes.
Right?
And she could have gotten away with it for a long time if that pipe hadn't burst, because she could have just kept taking, the buckets wherever she was taking them. Right. The head would have been a problem. But
yeah, I do wonder where the rest of Holger is.
Probably in various trash cans throughout Vienna over the years. Like I'm sitting here thinking if that was me, I would just carry one out every night when I left the store and drop it in a different dumpster on my way home every day. So see, I guess maybe I'm crazy too because I am thinking of how I would do it. But
now there's cameras everywhere in the world. They'll catch you.
True. And she was doing this at a time when it was harder to get away with things because we're in the 2000s when things can be traced really quickly through computers and all that. So I did look her up. She is a very attractive lady and she looks very small. And I can see why she would not have been immediately thought of for a while.
And she just runs an ice cream shop.
Yeah. There's no way. Like nobody's thinking anything when her first boyfriend went missing. Yep. I think she honestly probably would have gotten away with that guy forever.
I know. I don't really see why she felt like she had to kill Manfred though.
Yeah. Manfred is where she went too far.
Yeah.
And
because he admitted like I have a problem. I want to see other people. Like, she could have just walked away from that.
Just walk away. Let him go see all the other people wants to.
Yeah.
And then she would have met Roland maybe earlier and they could have had their kid and their happy life or whatever.
Right.
I hope her son's doing okay.
Me too.
Hopefully her parents and her father specifically are more attentive.
I'm sure he's hopefully doing something else now.
Yeah.
Maybe he's retired.
And, our parents are more stressed when they're younger. And then when they become grandparents, they're like different people. So he's probably
it's very true.
A much better parent, guardian, whatever, to her son.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing this story. I've never heard anything about it, so all new to me.
It's an interesting one. These female killers are always a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I'm attracted to female.
You're attracted
killers.
to females?
Yeah. Women are beautiful.
Are.
But yes, I always am drawn when I see a different kind of serial killer.
Yeah, not there yet, but I think she would have become one.
Yeah, because she would have kept rationalizing why it was okay to kill someone.
Exactly.
So,
and she would have needed more freezers.
Yeah, that cellar probably wasn't big enough for maybe a couple more.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is those freezers weren't plugged in or anything.
No.
They were just down there. And so that's why it still smelled.
Yes.
Because it was still... And if there's a toe popping out, like they found, obviously part of it is still decomposing and not completely covered. So that's why it still smelled.
Yeah, she was real sloppy.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a little different.
Yeah, I did.
Please come back next week for
Lab Reports.
And we're excited about that one. We have some cool stories coming.
Yeah, we'll have a couple of mini episodes and some listener tales to share.
Yes. If you have any of your own listener tales, lab reports, please send those to lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can find us on all the social media accounts at lucidlabpodcast, all one word. We are on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok.
Please go leave us a review and 5 stars where you can.
Please.
And when in doubt, leave. You do not need a chainsaw.
No. If you're a guy who's just playing video games all day long while your girlfriend is working and doing other things, just know she might choose violence. So maybe think about that and don't take advantage of her.
Go get her some ice cream.
Yeah. I want ice cream now.
Let's go. It's right there.
I haven't had dinner yet.
Oh, crap. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Stay lucid.
Stay lucid.